As a secret that never really came to light, Nastassja Kinski, the epitome of mystery and fragility in European film, silently walked onto the screen and lived on in the audience's memories. With her debut scene at the age of 14, she made grown-ups blush. By the time she was 18, she was the most sought-after European face in Hollywood during that decade, having stirred up controversy across Germany at the age of 15. She was previously imprisoned for making juvenile errors. She previously spoke candidly about her father's mistreatment of her as a youngster. At one point, she openly acknowledged that she felt taken advantage of by the same industry that praised her. She also entered into complex relationships. She left a question that no one has properly addressed after her abrupt absence from the cinema and her memorable appearances in Tess Cat People Paris, Texas. A regretful life, a face that will never be forgotten. And this is an icon's narrative unlike any other. January 24, 1961, saw the birth of Nastassja Kinski in Berlin, Germany, with Nastassja Kinski as her birth name. The renowned actor Klaus Kinski, a titan of German filmmaking and one of the most contentious performers in European cinema of the 20th century, had just one daughter. Her mother, Ruth Bridget Taki, had a much more silent and solitary existence and had no affiliation with the arts. The marriage was short-lived because of their disagreements. Nastassja was just 8 years old when they got divorced. Klaus swiftly left the family and started seeing someone else. Ruth brought up their kid by herself amid Munich's poverty. Due to her lack of a steady work, she was dependent on Nastassja, who by the time she was 13 had taken on tiny acting and modeling jobs to help support her mother. But her father's influence persisted despite their physical separation. Although Klaus Kinski was a fantastic artist, he was also notorious for his crazy lifestyle, uncontrollable outbursts, and unpredictable temper. He detailed acts of violence and sexual assault in his memoirs, among other actions that went far beyond moral bounds. He was accused of sexually assaulting members of his own family, which outraged the media and creative world and further cemented his reputation as one of the most divisive characters in film. Years later, in an uncommon but very upsetting admission, Nastassja would come clean and admit that she had also been molested by her biological father, which caused the world to see her history in a new perspective. In addition to leaving her emotionally damaged, family trauma, especially from a well-known father, influenced her turbulent, uneasy entry into the film business. Nastassja Kinski, who lived with her mother in Munich as a teenager, was often caught using public transit without a ticket. She was held for 5 days for not doing community service or paying penalties. In Germany at the time, she was already becoming well-known. Thus, media attention was quickly drawn to the story of a young actress being detained for a minor infraction. But when the people looked at Kinski, he said nothing at all. Because she behaved well, she was discharged early. The event became one of the first indications of her self-accountable attitude and rebellious spirit, which would later characterize her public image. Her visual characteristic was a little scar on her left cheek, which was little known to be the consequence of an accident she had while playing with a boyfriend when she was 15. It enhanced her appearance on TV, making her memorable despite her flaws in beauty. Nastassja's early years were devoid of innocence. She was raised on movie sets, in situations with mature themes, and under the critical gaze of a critical creative community rather than in schools or playgrounds. And it was exactly this intricacy and confusion that molded a Nastassja Kinski who often opted to keep silent in the face of controversy, kept the media at bay, and remained fiercely independent to the point of coldness. She never ran away from daring parts or dreaded graphic visuals, but she also never covered up or excused anything. This is what made her such a unique phenomena in the film industry. Gorgeous, one of a kind, and hard to describe. Nastassja Kinski made her film debut at a very early age. Director Wim Wenders' wife, actress Lisa Kreutzer, found her in a Munich nightclub when she was 14. Wenders asked Kinski to appear in the 1975 movie The Wrong Move, Falschbewegung, without even holding an audition after that fortuitous meeting. She portrayed Mignon in the film, a mute child who travels throughout Germany with the main character. Kinski created a powerful impact despite her lack of lines because to her realistic body length, profound stare, and inner reactions. This first performance not only signaled the start of her career but also established her reputation as a filmmaker. A quiet, enigmatic beauty, often concealing much more than what the viewer could see. Kinski made an appearance in Wolfgang Petersen's Reifetzognius episode of the well-known crime series Tatort in 1977. The character she portrayed was Sina Wolf, a 17-year-old student who was romantically connected with her instructor. To keep the affair a secret, Sina killed a fellow student who had learned about it and threatened to reveal it. Even though Kinski was barely 15 when the film was shot, she participated in delicate moments that included nudity. One of the most famous episodes in Tartort history, the episode attracted over 25 million viewers when it debuted. Nonetheless, Kinski's youth at the time and the contentious nature of the film generated a lot of discussion. Years later, she said that she had previously asked that certain pointless sequences not be shown because she had felt uneasy about them. She discussed her early creative experiences in public for the first time in this instance, and she did it with the calm poise and conciseness that would later come to characterize her. In Hammer Films' horror movie To the Devil, A Daughter, Kinski played Catherine, a young child brought up in a demonic cult. Starring in the movie were seasoned performers Richard Widmark and Christopher Lee. Even though she was young, Kinski gave a powerful performance that cemented her status as an actor on the global scene. Director Roman Polanski and Kinski had a major meeting as a result of this movie. Inspired by her unique beauty and natural acting, Polanski suggested Kinski go to the United States and attend the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute, one of the most prominent acting schools in the world that teaches the Stanislavski technique. It went beyond career guidance. It gave Kinski the opportunity to go beyond of the constricting, heavy frames of European film and into a more expansive cinematic realm. Having never had the chance to study acting in a rigorous, systematic manner, she took the suggestion, went to the United States, and started learning. Nastassja Kinski's career reached its most fertile and brilliant phase when she returned from the United States and finished her studies at the Lee Strasberg Institute. It was a short but brilliant time, so intense that many people thought she would become the new face of the world of film. And it's true that her name had a lot of appeal in Hollywood and Europe in the early 1980s. Together with the renowned Marcello Mastroianni, she featured in the Italian love drama Così come se, Stay as You Are in 1978. Kinski played the young lady in the film, which focused on the delicate interaction between a middle-aged guy and her. The film garnered notice due to its contentious topic as well as Kinski's exceptionally natural acting, which was far above her years and expertise. This position gave her a big break in the American market and paved the way for more ambitious global endeavors. For the 1979 film version of Thomas Hardy's book Tess of the D'Urberville, she soon re-teamed with Roman Polanski. As in homage to his late wife, Sharon Tate, Polanski not only directed the movie but also dedicated it to her. Kinski portrayed Tess, a poor rural girl who was drawn into a catastrophe that was beyond her ability to handle, in the movie. She played Tess, a role that appeared to be built just for her, and her performance was praised for its depth, complexity, and tenderness. In addition to earning Nastassja Kinski a Golden Globe for New Star of the Year in 1981, the performance cemented her reputation in the eyes of the world. She developed to become a strong candidate for the world's best directors, no longer only an intriguing European face. Kinski was chosen for the 1981 love musical One from the Heart, which was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, after Tess's popularity. In the post-apocalypse now period, it was one of the most anticipated films and her first American production. But there was a big danger along with high hopes. Originally intended to be a low-key production, Coppola chose to shoot the whole movie on a makeshift Las Vegas set in order to redefine cinematic language. He used fantastical backgrounds and dramatic lighting to create a magical visual experience. Although less than $2 million was initially projected, the budget soon grew to almost $25 million. The movie didn't have any big box office appeal. In Hollywood, Kinski was still a relatively obscure name, despite being a growing celebrity in Europe. Frederick Forrest, her co-star, wasn't well known either. The film's leisurely tempo, creative staging, and absence of traditional emotional highs made it seem quite different from what the average American would experience. To make matters worse, the rollout plan was subpar. The movie didn't get much publicity and didn't create much buzz before its release. One from the Heart became one of the worst financial flops of the early 1980s after only making roughly $600,000 when it was first released. Investors began to view auteur-driven films with a great deal of mistrust after this disaster, which drove Coppola's Zoetrope Studios to the verge of bankruptcy. Kinski's name was strongly associated with the movie in all of the advertising materials, even though she was not the primary cause of the failure. In Hollywood, where achievements and failures are quantified, being a part of such a significant financial disaster caused the industry to begin to take a more cautious perspective of Kinski's career. It signaled that the prosperous years ahead would not be as rose-paved as many had previously thought, marking a modest but significant turning point. Cat People, a 1982 remake of the 1942 horror classic, featured Nastassja Kinski once again. In the role she portrayed, Irina was a young lady who was stricken with an odd illness. She becomes a Black Panther when she is overcome with passion. Seductive, enigmatic, sad, and dangerous all at once, it was a complicated role. Under Paul Schrader's direction, the picture used a striking visual aesthetic, with set design, color, and lighting all contributing to a somber, gloomy mood. The narrative combined mystical aspects with instinctive feelings, making felines both unique and difficult to classify. Some interpreted it as a metaphor for suppressing one's emotions, while others referred to it as terror. Because of its bold scenes and representation of a female character who violated conventional norms, the movie caused controversy. Not only was Kinski a stunning protagonist, but she was also the focus of the movie's fascination, someone the viewer wanted to know but was never able to fully comprehend. Despite not being a commercial success, Cat People helped to further establish Kinski's unique persona. An actress with an ethereal charm, alluring but elusive, who never played it safe and was not hesitant to take on difficult parts. She went on to become one of the most mysterious figures of 1980s film as a result of it. In 1984, Kinski's career underwent a major creative shift when she collaborated with filmmaker Wim Wenders on Paris, Texas, a classic of independent American film. Despite its sluggish pacing, minimal speech, and lengthy silences, the picture managed to convey a unique emotional impact. Even though he barely made an appearance at the conclusion, Kinski's performance is often cited as the film's high point. After a difficult past, she played Jane Henderson, a lady who had left her husband and little boy behind. She is eventually located by Travis, played by Harry Dean Stanton, but they do not meet in person. They are separated by a one-way mirror and occupy different rooms. Throughout the roughly 10-minute chat, Kinski doesn't shout or weep aloud. She only spoke in a shaky voice, her eyes unable to contact his, her breath shaking as if her whole history were coming back to her and she was unable to contain it any longer. In 1980s film, that moment is regarded as one of the most unvarnished and tragic monologues. No dazzling lights, alluring images, or symbols were present. Kinski was naked on the inside. Nothing more was required to captivate the audience than her presence, her eyes on the edge of breaking, and the quiet between her statements. As Wim Wenders previously said, "I didn't need many lines for Jane because her eyes tell the whole story with Nastassja." Not because it was complicated, but rather because it was subtle but profound, like a wound that never healed on screen. Her performance is considered the apex of her career. In addition to winning the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, Paris, Texas came to represent the loneliness of Americans in film. As one of the most eerie female characters in cinema, Kinski's depiction of a lady attempting to endure the fallout from her own tragic decisions was praised without a single moment that was provocative. Additionally, it was the point at which Kinski became more well-known. She didn't choose parts for the spotlight. She selected flawed, subtly damaged women who were on the outside of the limelight and, with just her silence and innate gaze, transformed them into the emotional core of the movie. That was the extent of the illumination, however. Nastassja Kinski starred in Revolution in 1985. A large-scale endeavor that sought to recreate the American Revolution in epic proportions. Hugh Hudson, who had achieved great success with Chariots of Fire, directed the movie, while Irwin Winkler, who produced many of Hollywood's greatest successes, served as producer. The most notable role Kinski played was alongside one of the most sought-after performers of the time, Al Pacino. Everything seemed promising. An epic historical story, a big budget, and an A-list ensemble. But expectations fell apart in a flash. Revolution was one of the worst creative and commercial flops in British film during the 1980s, in addition to disappointing viewers when it debuted. The movie received a lot of negative reviews. A jumbled writing, erratic and hard-to-understand accents, slow pace, and most importantly, a story that lacks heart. Despite taking place amid one of the most significant junctures in American history, Revolution did not emotionally or historically resonate with its audience. Its empty core was irreparable under any amount of visual investment. Despite a production expense of around $28 million, the film's U.S. box office receipts of less than $360,000 were a startling loss at the time. But the harm was not limited to the box office. This failure caused a crisis of confidence among UK film investors, which resulted in the bankruptcy of many production firms and a long-term prohibition on major motion picture projects. After that, director Hugh Hudson almost lost his job on large projects. The film's main character, Al Pacino, received harsh criticism and decided to temporarily remove himself from the spotlight to escape criticism. Although not the protagonist, Nastassja Kinski's appearance in two successive high-profile flops, one from The Heart and Revolution, started to establish her as a high-risk name among Hollywood filmmakers. No one questioned Kinski's ability or attractiveness, but she started to lose importance in a field where profit is closely linked to brand awareness. She didn't get big scripts as often. Now, leading parts were written for newcomers. Even though she kept performing, Nastassja Kinski was no longer seen as a budding star after Revolution. Instead, she was viewed as a wildcard that Hollywood had learned to handle carefully. In addition to her ability and unique attractiveness, Nastassja Kinski attracted notice during the height of her glittering career for her personal relationships, which sparked equal amounts of interest. 3 well-known filmmakers had romantic relationships with her. Paul Schroeder, Wim Wenders, and Roman Polanski were the 3 individuals who once positioned her at the core of their creative universes. The first person to recognize and support Kinski's cinematic path was Roman Polanski. When she was barely 15, they met in 1976 at a party in Germany. She was cast in the main part of Tess by Polanski, who also urged her to pursue acting studies at the Lee Strasberg Theatre and Film Institute in the U.S. 1979, the movie for which she won a Golden Globe. Despite a lot of conjecture about a love connection, Kinski denied ever having a sexual relationship with Polanski, claiming that it was just a flirtation and that he had always shown her respect. The first filmmaker to see Kinski's potential was the German Wim Wenders, who cast her in her first feature, The Wrong Move, in 1975, and her career's high point, Jane in Paris, Texas, almost 10 years later. Theirs, however, was more than a director-actress partnership. They supposedly had a long-lasting, discreet romance, which has never been verified or disputed. In interviews, Wenders often referred to Kinski as the light I never wanted to lose and talked of her with a special regard. Another quote from Kinski was, "Women, I don't need to talk to understand each other. In the quiet that exists between us, there is love." They were able to produce cinematic moments that would never be duplicated because of this profound confidence. According to Merchants, her eyes are already a narrative in Nastassja, thus she hardly spoke in her part as Jane in Paris, Texas. The director of Cat People, 1982, Paul Schrader, fell in love with Kinski while filming the movie. "She was the one actress I dared not direct," he once said. When shooting was over, Schrader was eager for more. He even intended to pop the question at the wrap-up celebration. Kinski, however, did not appear. She broke off communication. No message, no justification. It would subsequently be described by Schrader as a personal sorrow that he never fully recovered from. Similar to the characters she portrayed, Nastassja Kinski never lingered in one spot for too long. Although her romances were quiet and short-lived, they always left a gap. She never discussed any of her relationships or the reasons for her breakups in public. "I need independence more than love," she once said in a rare revelation. People may remember her not just as an actor but also as a lady because of her quiet, which is both proud and private. Who was never really someone's property. After a short courtship, Egyptian director Ibrahim Musa and Nastassja Kinski were married in 1984. She had only a few months before given birth to her first child, Aljasha, on June 29, 1984, from a relationship with her co-star in Maria's Lovers, Vincent Spano. They stayed in contact as old friends even if their affair with Spano ended. Sonia Kinski, Kinski's daughter born on March 2, 1986, would go on to become a model and actress. Kinski and Musa were married till 1992. Their marriage was anything but easy, however. Ibrahim Musa challenged Kinski's proposal to bring both of their children to the U.S. in juvenile court in Rome after their divorce. Kinski was given full custody by the Italian court in the summer of 1992, which enabled her to go to California with the kids and start a new life in Los Angeles. Not long after, Kinski started dating Quincy Jones, a renowned music producer who produced Michael Jackson's classic albums. They had a daughter, Kenya Kinski Jones, and shared a home from 1992 until 1995. Given birth on February 9, 1993. Kenya is now a well-known model and environmentalist who works with high-profile companies like Vogue, Stella McCartney, and Calvin Klein. Kinski had a separate apartment close to UCLA even as she lived with Jones, a decision that amply demonstrated her fiercely independent personality. She never got married to Quincy Jones officially, and neither of them spoke out publicly following their breakup. Kinski never allowed her private life to become the subject of a media story, despite having 3 children from 3 separate partnerships and having romantic connections with a number of well-known directors, actresses, and artists. She never addressed tabloid rumors, made no comments about controversies, or made an appearance on talk programs to correct the record. True or not, all the rumors just vanished into thin air. During a rare interview with the German media, Kinski said a single statement. "I've had enough experiences with the camera. I would want to retain the remainder for me." She took that decision in order to safeguard her privacy and the individuals she cared about. Standing at the center of attention was never Nastassja Kinski's style. She made no effort to distinguish out or pursue celebrity. However, her calm demeanor and unique choice of roles made her one of the most enduring symbols of European and global film. During her prime, she was seen as a new kind of beauty, different, reserved, and unapproachable. She didn't strive to appeal to the general public or match the Hollywood stereotype. It was hard to turn away from that face, weak and far away, but equally hard to comprehend completely. Wim Wenders, the director, famously said, "I didn't have to write much dialogue with Nastassja. Words couldn't express the impact of her silence." English, German, French, Italian, and Russian are among Kinski's 5 languages. Because of this, she was able to play a variety of roles in foreign films, ranging from a haunting broken lady in Paris, Texas, to a country kid in Tess. Instead of the usual idealized ladies, she always opted for complicated, troubled characters, whether in main or supporting parts. These parts influenced how women were represented in movies. Kinski's female figures were not just meant to be adored or pitied. They had inner lives that were difficult for others to access, voices, and anguish. In addition to performing, Kinski experimented with literature and photography. She exhibited several of her own photographs throughout Europe. Despite not receiving much publicity, art enthusiasts were drawn to these displays because they captured the same serene, sad, and genuine feeling that they had previously seen on television in her photographs. Her career included nominations for major awards such as the César in France and the Nastro d'Argento in Italy, as well as a Golden Globe for Tess and an Italian David di Donatello award. However, the audience's reaction to each performance was what really made her successful, not the quantity of awards she received. Nastassja Kinski never needed to defend herself or raise her voice in order to be noticed. She took the unique decision to be just slightly present, which is what made her a silent figure who lives on in the hearts of moviegoers. Even though Nastassja Kinski has long since left the spotlight, she nevertheless sometimes shows up at important cultural gatherings. She walked the red carpet with a soft smile and understated elegance during the 74th Berlinale International Film Festival in early 2024. In the same year, she also made an appearance at Berlin's Cinema for Peace Gala, a giving event aimed at promoting social and humanitarian concerns. Kinski posts pictures of her daily activities, sunsets, her little garden, and quiet, introspective thoughts on her personal Instagram profile. She added, "I feel protected, but I also trust and pray," in a June 2024 post. These days, Kinski leads a tranquil life in California, reading, meditating, and caring for her garden. She supports humanitarian projects, particularly those that help impoverished kids and raise awareness of mental health issues. Based on her own experiences, she subtly provides motivation and support. Always with caution and humility. At 64, Nastassja Kinski has made the decision to live a more relaxed, contented life. Like a lady who has seen all the storms and now just wants peace, quiet, and the beauty of the little, unsaid things. Her life has never been one of perpetual light. Maybe it is the reason her light lasts so long. Even after turning 90, some artists, like Clint Eastwood, continue to work diligently behind the camera, producing movies, and finding ways to be present. The reason they produce is to live, not to gain notoriety or wealth. Not like Nastassja Kinski. Instead of running away, she decided to live her life as she saw fit. Nor a scandalous memoir, nor a spectacular retirement. No spectacular return. At the ideal time, when the audience was still aware of her, she softly vanished. There are just options in what seems right in this situation, there is no right or wrong. Maybe she had no desire to be famous for all time. It's possible that her main desire was to be a lovely light that was only hers, even if it was fleeting. What about you? Do you decide to live only to be noticed? Or to be who you really are? Post your opinions in the comments section. We think all viewpoints should be heard, regardless of your personal opinion.